Hello, Thrive Nation. Today's going to be all about joy. Yes, despite your circumstances, despite your situation, despite how tough it's been in your life, I've got a very unique, special soul. She is a doctor with many certifications, double board certified in family medicine, integrative medicine. She got so many different types of accreditations and certifications in functional medicine. And so it's a privilege and an honor to have Dr. Tanmeet Sethi on the show.
Oh, Steve, I'm really honored to be here. I can't wait to have this conversation.
What's so beautiful listening to your TED Talk and reading your book that has left me with tears of joy is that your heart and your soul are so expressed in so many different ways. And you've shared your own struggles, your own pain, your own history of clinical depression, just what you've done. You've just literally been a wounded healer. You know, I think of the old Jewish writings, the Talmud of the wounded healer that comes as wounded as they are to help others. So the first question I do want to ask is, why did you write this incredible book that's going to be launched in the beginning of May called Joy is My Justice?
This book is really a culmination of all my personal and professional work, my deep soul work with others and myself. It felt like, have you ever felt that need, that calling, like something has to be done? And it really felt like I was spending so much time one-on-one with patients as well as with friends and colleagues. I also do a lot of work with physicians who are burnt out and lost their meaning and connection to their work. And I felt like I was repeating the same things over and over and having people say, but how did you do that? And I thought, well, there must be a way to figure out how to share this more accessibly and with a wider group. And honestly, it also feels like part of, as we say in my culture, my dharma. It feels like part of my purpose and a way to make meaning out of my pain as well. Because anytime someone says they're touched by my work or my writing or my book, I think that's just a further extension of the work and value of my son's life in this world. And so I'm honored to have written it.
Brilliant. It's almost my journey now, finishing 25 years of clinical practice, not missed a single day's work to sickness or ill health in over 24 and a half years. But Made to Thrive is my baby, is a big part of my purpose and why, to prevent chronic disease, to educate, to inspire, to empower people with the tools and the habits, really to prevent this plethora of diseases and sicknesses that I've never seen in practice ever before in the last 2-3 years. And in South Africa, Dr. Sethi, we really battle with anxiety and depression. Even in 2015, it was voted the second most stressful country to live in the world. Over 60% of those employed between ages of 31 and 59 have a mental condition. So it is a really difficult place circumstantially to live in, and there's a lot of reasons for that. And that's why it's so fascinating and interesting that I really believe we've been put together for the show, because I think your book really needs to be read by a lot of South Africans and Africans. And so I'm going to ask you this question, which is a brilliant question in your book, is what is Dr. Sethi's deeper why?
Yeah, I talk about in my book how finding your deeper why helps your brain actually stay on track and want to stay on the path to whatever you're working on, but in this case, joy. My deeper why is really that, honestly, Steve, I never felt safe in my body growing up as a brown woman in the American South. I'm a Sikh woman with a family of turbaned men in the South in the 1980s. It was not as cool as it is now. And it was quite difficult. It was very challenging. We also lived in a very dangerous neighborhood. I really never felt safe. And my deeper why is really now is to say, how is it that we all can find safety and joy in our bodies, even when the world does not give it to us? And I feel so strongly about it because I feel like it is my justice work in this world that I really feel almost righteous in that I deserve joy no matter what. I deserve to feel safe no matter what. I deserve to know that I can have hope no matter what is happening around me. And so my deeper why really is to say, how can I share this with others so that if we can create more joy and safety in our communities, then how can we all do better work together and actually do work in the world that leads to more justice? You may be feeling this on your side of the world, but I have never not only seen such a sick world, I have also never seen such a divided world. And I've never seen a world in which we are so not willing to talk to each other and to understand each other. And I really feel that joy is a pathway to all of that.
Sure. Amazing. You use the words, and possibly you can unpack this. Joy is your birthright. What do you mean by that?
Yes. Well, I think to take a step back, I think the way to explain this more is that I think there's a big difference between joy and happiness. And I think maybe we should start there. I think that the wellness world has done us a disservice by keeping joy out of the conversation in its truest form. So people are led to think that we're all supposed to be happy, that, getting to our happiness set point or finding happiness is the most important thing. Now, I'll take happiness any day it comes, I'll take it. But joy is much more profound than happiness. It is a deep embodied experience that we are all born with, that lives in the same place as our pain. It draws on that same deep capacity for love and meaning. It's actually a way that we find to hold the pain. And so it's not as binary as happiness. And when I say joy is my birthright, it's that I get to be angry, sad, fearful, upset, whatever I'm feeling, but I still have the birthright to access joy right next to that. I may be suffering, someone may be oppressed and suffering from trauma, all kinds of things, but we all deserve that right to feel joy right alongside that. There are many days, Steve, that I am not happy, but I always access joy. And in fact, I tell people that I think I was much happier in my life prior to my son's fatal diagnosis, but I have never been as joyful.
Sure, that's profound, the difference between happiness and joy. Now, how did that work out personally in your life? You said you suffered with clinical depression, and in those times, people don't have any energy. It's often a condition of just real apathy and listlessness, and you got no energy to access that joy. So possibly give us your story about your clinical depression, because I just think it's so powerful, and then how you access joy in that time.
Yeah, well, first, I will say with a preface that I think everybody needs a lot of tools when we're feeling clinically depressed. I don't think that, I think sometimes it's just hard, at least I've experienced in my thousands of patients that I've seen with depression, that it can just be hard to get up from the bed and to do anything. Right. And so I really want to honor that and also acknowledge that depression is a very complex and multifactorial condition. At the same time, I will tell you the first time I had clinical depression was actually in medical school, and I did not understand this practice of joy. And so I suffered deeply. And I do not think that I was able to access any of these tools that I talk about in the book, actually. The second time that I talk about in the book much more in detail is postpartum depression, which really honestly was debilitating and quite shameful for me at the time. Now looking back, I can't see how I felt shame, but I really did. And I really honor that most of us can feel shame around feeling depressed at a time when we're supposed to be happy about having a child and being a mother. And in that time of my postpartum depression, I really used all the tools in this book to really bring myself out of that depression, along with my doctors and my medical team and my counseling, right? So never without any of all the other treatments. But what I think is really different about my practice of joy now, when I feel, I thankfully have not been that suffering that much from clinical depression since then, but I do get down and I do get depressed. I think there's a difference, though, with what I was feeling before. I think that the biggest difference now, Steve, is that even in my darkest days now, when I'm just feeling hopeless and not sure why I have to deal with whatever it is in front of me, I think sometimes, wow, I am so sad. I am so hopeless. I can feel all of that. And that means that I have won.
Sure.
That means that this suffering has not stripped me of my humanity. That means that I am not numb. I don't like what I'm feeling. I hope I feel better tomorrow or the next day or the next week. But I am so grateful that I have my humanity and all my wealth of emotions that are accessible to me. And then I cry some more.
Wow. Just being grateful for the fact that you can feel more, which is something that you said in your book, is not to feel better, but to feel more and to transcend out of that and acknowledge it and not try and suppress those emotions and deny those emotions and almost say, hang on, they don't exist, but really to walk alongside them and observe them and then to be grateful for them is the first door, possibly. Is gratitude the first door to access your joy?
I think it can be. I think what I try to say in this book is really that your roadmap is different. Everyone's roadmap is different. Gratitude was my first door, and I think it can be a powerful first door. But for some people, it may be movement or breath or compassion or meditation or, a number of things. It can be anything that gets you there. For me, gratitude is so powerful because when we say, I am grateful for this moment right here, right now, we actually metaphorically and energetically turn towards it. We accept it in a way different than when we say, I wish this weren't happening. I wish this were different. When we say thank you or I am grateful for it, then we actually turn right there and face it. And that is almost always my first step to accessing my joy practice. It's to say what's in front of me is beautiful and brutal, but it is what's in front of me. And it's what I have right now. And can I turn towards it and lovingly meet it instead of pushing it away? I say that as though it's simple. I don't think it's simple. Yeah. It took me years to figure that out. But I don't think that it's as hard as we think it is. And actually, I think that it's harder to avoid it.
It's pretty profound because do you think that just as we're born from like a reflexive point of view, using this amygdala part of our brain, we're living for survival? So then these feelings come and then we want to suppress them or deal with them or run away from them or fight them or resist them or freeze with them because we're using that very primitive part, which has been great from a survival perspective. For example, at Made to Thrive, we say, why do people eat? And people say, oh, to survive or hungry, or no, we need to change the narrative to say we eat to thrive. And so that might mean that you don't eat because you want to thrive, or you change your food because you want to thrive. So now it's a training, it's a maturing of the soul to be able to actually do what you've now just proposed.
Yes, I think you're right on with that, is that those emotions are so uncomfortable that we see them as threat in our mind and our body. And we evolutionarily are primed to see them as danger. They don't feel good. They give us messages of something being amiss or off in the world, right? And I think that's important to listen to. Our fear is important to listen to. Often we should be fearful. There are dangerous things around us, right? And there are also reasons to be angry at the world. And all of those are important messengers. So I think not discounting them allows us to listen better and also to feel more, right? And I think you're right on with that, is that I talk about that in the book, is that this way that we are primed for threat and danger is a way we have protected ourselves. We are not broken. We are actually working quite delicately and beautifully. But sometimes that served us for far too long and moved us into full-blown anxiety or depression or feeling stuck or disconnected. And it's time to re-step into our body in a different way.
Yeah, it's true. And our cultures, I come from a Greek home, and my parents came from the island of Cyprus in 1961 and settled in South Africa. But a big part of my culture, and I think a big part of the Indian culture, is this grieving process, and to live in sort of this melancholic state. And, my grandfather passed away, and my grandmother wore black, and she was down and downhearted and grieved till the rest of her days. I think it was like 15 years of absolute drudgery and just no moving forward with purpose. Or it seems like a lot of cultures want to just almost live in that space of pain and grief, and it has its place, the grieving process, but
yes,
it seems that it's just now extended for many people. Is that correct?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's different for everyone. I come from a culture very similar to yours, where you're if you don't grieve for a certain way or a certain amount or a certain severity, then it's looked at as if you're not a good parent or spouse or whatever, what have you. I think that there is also this way that I think you alluded to this. I have also never seen so much disconnection and physical and emotional suffering in my practice. And I think that there's a way in which we're just compounded with so much stress. Modern living is much more stressful in many ways. There's so much coming at us. The food is, propagated by a system that's actually quite oppressive. I don't think people want to make bad food choices. I think our systems offer bad foods or food-like substances. And in a way, it just keeps snowballing. And so I think people do get really stuck, and I don't think they want to be. I don't want to be stuck when I'm feeling stuck, but the inertia to get unstuck is quite large. And the question is, what do I do about that? Is it, the idea of, now I need years of therapy to get unstuck. Now, I do think therapy is important, but people also need accessible practices every day in their home, in their lives. I am, as you said, an integrative functional primary care physician, and I always tell people that I don't know if in South Africa you call it primary care as well, but here we say primary care and then tertiary care for the hospital, and my teachers from South Africa have said that too, so I think it's the same. But I always say I'm not sure what happened to secondary care. And that primary care, I think, should have been what you do in your home, the tools in this book, what your grandmother gives you as a remedy, what the healer in the community gives you as a balm for your soul, and then I should be secondary care. I should be the next one you come to, because most people come to me disconnected from any sense of what to do for themselves first. I don't know if you've experienced that.
Absolutely. It's just, and once again, it's going to this very survival mechanism. The big food is not a benevolent organization. They don't want the best for you. They're food scientists, they're neuroscientists, they're neurobiologists that's saying, well, how can we give the quickest amount of dopamine to this person, who then says, okay, well, it's the easiest thing to go to the fridge or the pantry and pick something up. It hits my dopamine centers. I feel much better, and I don't want to work and create food because that's going to take energy. Although it's going to be better for me, they've tapped into the very neurobiology and neuroscience of food and of survival versus thriving. And so my next question, what are the studies saying, or what have you found with regards to neuroscience when someone feels joy? What are those neurotransmitters that are flooding the brain and the body?
Yeah, good question. We see a lot of what you just said. Actually, when we feel joy, we secrete dopamine, which is a reward chemical that makes us want more joy, right? It makes us want to know, what is this thing I'm feeling and how can I feel it again? We secrete oxytocin, the connection and love hormone, right? That makes us want to connect to others and connect to ourselves. We secrete things that amazing chemicals that I reference in the book from our muscles when we move our bodies, not exercise. I'm not even talking about a cardio exercise, okay, or high intensity interval training. I'm talking about moving our bodies. We secrete what are called myokines, which are anti-inflammatory chemicals that actually the scientists dubbed hope molecules because they create a spiral of all these good feeling neurochemicals in our brain. When we feel these chemicals coursing through our body, we feel good and we want more of it. We also sometimes, depending on what we're doing, especially with movement, but also with meditation, can secrete something called BDNF, brain-derived neurotrophic factor, which is a fancy word for a chemical that allows our brain to be more plastic or learn and to remember things. So I think about that when we're moving our bodies, that our brains are literally saying, remember this. This is what you were made to do. This is what makes you feel good. And, you know, all these chemicals create what the science, I didn't make up this word, the scientists say are a spiral of joy, that we want more and more. Now, I think we can get in a downward spiral of the feeling bad. And so the question is, how do we get into this upward spiral? And really, any of these tools that I'm talking about in the book can step you into that spiral. The question is, which one attracts you? Which one feels right to you? What can you start with? As with my patients in the office, I often say, you know, if you're going to change one thing, they'll say, which one should I change first? And I say, which one do you want to change first? Because if you can just make one change, whatever you want, and it feels good, it'll make you want to feel more, right? So I think this is a self-driven roadmap that everyone needs to know what is right for me, and that is what is perfect.
Sure. And that's obviously something that can be adopted in someone's lifestyle. A lot of things, just giving a little video reel on oxytocin and giving a 20-second hug. When you hug someone for 20 seconds, it's far greater oxytocin than 3 seconds. I've been telling my patients, my family, how important hugging is and physical contact is. And I suppose I don't know about the studies, but possibly more people feel more from a hug, or people might feel more from having sex or sexual contact with regards to oxytocin. So you got to find those levers that you can use to really help your neurochemicals.
Yes, exactly. And the key is you have to find those, but the key is knowing and believing that you have those accessible to you. I want everyone to know that joy is accessible to them no matter what. If you feel like joy is too hard or it's too much to hope for, then I want you to know that's not the case. It is not too big to hope for joy. You were made to be big. You were made to have joy. And this wellness world that says you have to be quote unquote resilient enough to get through things is further oppressing us to not understand that we all have the right to feel this joy. And when we do, it can be a revolution in our bodies.
Yeah, it's powerful. And sort of leads me to the next question with regards to medications that numb you out, that almost stop joy. Because if joy, and one of the characteristics is that you feel more, that you can stand alongside and view those emotions. And if you feel numb and you've got no highs and you've got no lows, anything that does that is preventing you from accessing joy.
Yes, that's true. Now, this is a nuanced, complex topic, right? Because medications also can be a bridge when we are feeling completely distraught, depressed, even on the risk of harming ourselves. Medications can be so useful as a bridge to do the work. And yet long-term medications can make us feel numb. And so my patients will say they feel just sort of numb, like I don't feel really bad, but I don't feel really good. And so the question is, what's the middle of that? I think what I have found in my practice and in the medical system in which I practice is that the problem I would say there's also an overuse of medication, but the biggest problem I see is that medications are given as a solution, and then that's the end of the story. So when I give people a medication, if they're depressed or anxious and they need a medication, I say, be grateful for this. Be grateful that we have this tool, but this tool is not enough.
Yeah.
It is not enough. When we see that it works in studies, we see that people are 30% better. That's our response rate we use as success. To me, that's not enough.
Yeah.
And, so they can be the bridge to do the work, but the work has to be done.
But the question is, once again, using the survival frame and using this amygdala, is you give someone a pill. It's the easy thing to open a box, take the pill, but then the lifestyle doesn't happen. So then you've got to ask yourself the question, which I've often done, is, am I enabling someone not to take those choices and to go the road that they need to long term by providing them with this medication? Because we've used health coaches for many years, and psychologists and psychotherapists and CBT and EFT and EMDR and trauma-informed work across the board, which is great. But if people have a choice generally, and this is not for everyone, but if they have a choice to take a pill, then once again, these big organizations, as helpful as they can be for many, I'm not anti any medication, whether it's natural Chinese medicine, Ayurvedic, or Western medicine, but it then often can be a bridge that then leads to a road where someone does not do the work. And then we have the danger that we're enabling behavior.
Yeah, I mean, I think that this is where it takes a partnership of a guide and a partnership, right, between patient and clinical provider, and laying out all the options and also laying out the concerns and the risks and the benefits. And so, there is a way that we don't want to enable, and we also don't want to be a patriarchal chooser of how people choose to move forward, right? So it is a complex, nuanced topic.
Yeah. Okay, so we've looked at sort of neurotransmitters and the neurobiology in terms of what's happening with joy. I just want to ask you one functional medicine question, which is something of my own person, and we'll get into the book because you've got an incredible roadmap. And I want to talk about joy is, and then finish the sentence because you've got a brilliant roadmap. But what I found recently is that testing people's amino acids and looking at their dried blood spot amino acid profile has been extremely profound for a lot of the neurotransmitters, and looking at things like tryptophan and tyrosine and a lot of these different amino acids has really helped my patients with those neurotransmitters. Possibly give us your thinking on that, your thoughts on that. Very valuable, because it's been difficult to, and not that I want to convince anyone of how important this test is. I don't benefit financially at all, but it has changed a significant amount of my patients and clients, especially those that were just taking amino acids, whether it was branch chain amino acids in the form of valine, isoleucine, and leucine, and those, and then at the detriment of other amino acids, or collagen, taking so much collagen, taking a lot of glycine and proline at the detriment of others. And that's caused significant neurotransmitter changes in their body, according to me and what I've seen. But I'd love your view on that, because I think it's really important.
Yeah, well, I would say that what you're really dipping into now is the crux of where I hope all medicine goes, which is individualized, personalized care, and understanding that no one's biochemistry is exactly alike. And so the way that we study medication, the way that we study interventions in Western research has nothing to do with individuated care. And so what I'd like to see is that we use these kind of tests in research and then study the medication, right? Because what we get is, I think the harm that happens is, since it is not individualized, is that people come back saying, as you know, this is not working for me, but they feel almost like a failing in themselves. Like, this didn't work. I am not better. Why isn't this working? And it's this ongoing sort of no end conversation, when the real question is, why isn't it working for you? Exactly. And so I think that, functional med docs like ourselves and others who are doing these kind of tests I hope, the challenge for me is cost for people. And I hope that what we can come to is an understanding that this could be more accessible in one day. I keep hoping, Steve.
Yeah. Well, that's good to hear, because often what happens is the patient gets a medication and then it doesn't work. And then the doctor or the physician blames the patient on not working. And it's like the patient wants to get well, but it's not working. Now the accountability lies with they weren't compliant, or they missed taking medications, or they haven't done this. And then the onus gets put on the patient to say, it's not working because the medication hasn't worked. And I think that narrative has to change.
Exactly. And even we have language I hear all the time of they failed that therapy.
Yeah.
As if, it was their fault.
Yeah.
So I agree. I mean, it's going to take a lot more providers like yourself who do these tests to really show that this is important. I'm hoping one day.
Good. I'm going to loop around back to Joy, but two areas that I've done a lot of interviews on, and I've referred a lot of patients, is the use of ketamines and the use of psychedelics. With regards to Joy, I don't know if you can summarize that. Have you found that those two modalities can be beneficial for people? And I'll tell you why I've seen a significant change in many people over time, is that the dose is restricted to a number of sessions, call it 4 sessions, 6 sessions over 1 or 2 hours, or whatever the duration of the drip is, where traditional Western medicine can be a course for 4 to 6 months of taking a dose continually every single day. Now, what I believe and what I think is that if you do that, you don't allow the body the healing, or you limit the amount of healing the person can go through with regards to other modalities. And so it becomes something where you're taking this daily dose instead of this modality that can help you bridge or help you with neurogenesis or help you just lay a new foundation for new neural pathways. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah. Well, this could be a whole nother podcast, but I don't know if you know, Steve, that psychedelic medicine is my new area of practice.
No.
Oh, yeah.
No.
So I've gotten certification, yet another certification. I think I'm done with these certifications. And I'm on a primary research team for psilocybin, actually, here at the University of Washington. And I'm doing ketamine in practice, because ketamine is legal, the only one that's legal in clinical practice. So I have a lot of thoughts, but I will try to distill them. I think I strongly believe in them. That's why I am shifted my practice to include them, and gotten further training and spent a lot of time in research now on it. I think that what psychedelics can do is profound. I don't think they're a fix-all. They aren't, nothing's a magic cure. But I think that why they are profound is because what we're really talking about is, as you said, not trying to band-aid symptoms or take a daily medication that then causes more side effects, but we're using medicines that have potent ability to shift consciousness, to shift perspective. Almost like I talk to patients about it as a reset, almost as a reboot. How can I step aside from my trauma and look at it a different way? How can I access my own inner healing capacity to give me the messages I need that years of cognitive therapy cannot get from my mind? And so, and then there are potent neurochemical ways that they all work differently, but also they involve even BDNF, like I said before, neuroplasticity, rewiring. But the potential, I think, is immense. And I've done trauma work for the last 25 years, done a lot of addiction work, complex psychiatry. I am so excited to have a tool that I think is just honestly like the tools I talk about in this book.
Sure.
I think it's a tool to potently step into your body in a different way and to listen and listen deeply. And so I'm a strong believer, I'm a practitioner of it, but I believe that they can be another way that people really do this, that they find their joy again. Because remember that for your listeners to understand that joy draws on that same well as our pain. It's our well that is our capacity not only for love, but for finding meaning. And when we can find meaning and put meaning into our suffering loses power. It loses that power over us. It becomes part of our path instead of a dampening of our path.
Yeah.
And so, psychedelics can be a potent tool for that.
And help you feel more, which is incredible,
Yes.
and not numb you to that. So I'm going to go to the roadmap, which is brilliant. We've answered joy is not the same as happiness. The next one is this joy is not about getting somewhere. Maybe give us your thoughts on that.
Yeah. I often, and I'm going to use myself vulnerably in this. I thought that, and I hear this often, but I will say that I thought joy was like happiness, like something to get to. I'll feel better when I have this, when I do this, when I achieve this. And what joy really is a moment-to-moment experience we can have in our body anytime. And it's not somewhere to get to. I actually say to people that joy, we don't rise to find our power. It's in our rising that we find our power. Yeah. And it's in that rising towards joy that we find that power. So it's not a destination. It's right here, right now.
Yeah, it's right here, right now, as we are speaking, as we are walking together, as we are journeying together, we can access it together, which is pretty profound. Great. The next one, Tanmeet, this joy is not a commodity that you seek in a luxurious spa.
Yeah, because I think the narrative is that you'll feel better when you take that beautiful vacation in the beautiful island, or you'll go to the spa and you'll have a manicure and a massage. And, when I was younger, we didn't do those kinds of things. We didn't have the money or the time to do that. My parents were working too hard. And so I thought those were things that I couldn't access. So it became this sort of undercurrent story that I can't do that.
Yeah.
And actually, joy has nothing to do with that. It's free and accessible any moment of the day. And those things are all great if you can have them, and if you enjoy them, go for it. But they are not true, profound joy in our body. They are add-ons.
Because if we don't have them, we believe we cannot have joy and happiness. And that is not true. Right. So we get sold that lie. Even at Made to Thrive, I think of my early days at medical school, I used to sing the old acronym with this radio show called Thank God It's Friday. And it was happiness and songs, and we have drinks with the guys in the afternoon, and absolutely really anti-joy that you have to wait for weekends to be happy and to have joy. You have to wait for holidays to be happy and to be joyful, that Monday is bad and that the week is bad and work is bad, which is totally anti-joy. Because it's actually every single moment that we can access it. Every single moment is part of the journey, the joy journey, the life journey that we have. And so we've got a little acronym, Thank God It's Monday, TGIM, to swing the pendulum.
Love it.
Yeah.
I love it.
Because we want to swing the pendulum to the other side, to say on a Monday morning, there's the stat that I share with corporates, because I do a lot of corporate work, is that 20% more heart attacks on a Monday morning. That's the stat. And that's because people's perceptions and the view of Monday and what happens, and it's so stressful, and I've got to this, and I've now finished the weekend, and I've got to wait for the next weekend, is so warped. And so I really love that it's not found in a luxurious spa. And I think you've been so real and so authentic, and I'm so grateful. Every person listening, you need to get this book, Joy is My Justice. We are going to get it out as far and wide as we can.
Well, I want a refrigerator magnet that says TGIM.
Yeah, that's great. That's incredible. Okay, and the next one, the joy is a touchstone that you can come back to over and over, an infinite inner resource.
Yes. Because joy lives in our body, because it is what we can access through stimulating our vagus nerve and our parasympathetic relaxation system, through our neurochemistry that we talked about, it is always there for us. And it's like a soothing mantra, as we say in my culture. A mantra is something you say over and over to calm yourself. Joy is something you can keep coming back to. It's like an old friend. It's always there. I actually, in my own personal practice, think of joy as, I call it, I say she, you can say whatever pronoun, but I
Yeah.
say she. And I always think, even in my darkest moments, I think she's waiting for me. I know she is, but
Wow.
I'm not ready yet. I need to
Wow.
feel sad right now. But
Wow.
I know she's there waiting for me.
Wow.
And she becomes a companion. She becomes something that is there with me all the time. Right.
Mm.
And even 2 months ago, we had a very traumatic experience in my home where my son suffered a very traumatic fracture of his spine. And it was one of the, and this is saying a lot because I've gone through a lot of medical problems with him, but it was one of the scariest moments I've had in a long time.
Wow.
And in that sort of dozen hours in the emergency room and taking him there and hearing him squeal like I've never heard before, I was shaking, I was crying, I was so scared. And even in those trembling moments, I'm not kidding you, I was shaking and crying. And between crying and breaths, I would just put my hand on my heart and say, thank you that I'm here, that there's a team here caring for us, that I'm here with my son, that I'm holding him. It isn't that thanking things means they're always great or fun. But it's like you said, thanking yourself that it's Monday, right? Sometimes I just get up and touch the ground with my feet and think, thank you for another
Mm.
day. Even
Yeah.
especially when I think that, as people say, it's going to suck or be horrible, I think, well, then I should really feel thankful I'm here,
Yeah.
because this is no way to live, to be just expecting the worst, right?
Yeah. Thank you for sharing that. That is so profound. And thank you for just sharing your heart. Yeah, it's wonderful.
Yeah.
This is a very important one, and that I believe is hugely important. This joy is not binary.
Yeah. It isn't like happiness where I'm happy or I'm not happy. You really do have to say that it's binary. Joy is there in moments. The biggest example I use for people is that you, at a funeral for someone you love, will find yourself in a circle of people laughing about memories of that
Yeah.
person, right? And we've all had that experience where then we think about a time where that person brought us so much joy, our heart lightens and we smile, and then we cry in the same moment because we've lost that memory, right? And so there's a way that joy holds us. It allows me to hold the capacity for all of these emotions. It's not binary. It lives in each of these emotions.
Sure.
And so there's a way that once you realize that joy is accessible all the time, you realize that I don't have to be sad or joyful. I can be sad and joyful. I can be sad and touch joy. It might just be that I'm so sad and I go for a walk and I see a beautiful flower and I think that's amazing. And it might be a fleeting moment, but most of life is fleeting.
Yeah, it's true.
We touch it when we can.
Cool. Last one, because I think people can get the rest in the book. It's incredible.
Yeah.
But this is just a wonderful roadmap. But you do not need to earn this joy.
Yes. You do not need to earn it. You deserve it every moment of the day. It is accessible to all of us, no matter what you have gone through. That is the justice here. Not only that, but I often have felt, and I hear people feel, that when something bad happens, sort of this sense of how could that happen to me? As if I only have bad things happen to bad people, or if you're good, nothing happens to you. We are not faulty. We are not broken. We are not bad. We are humans walking through this life in a human experience, and we deserve joy every single time we can, every day.
Brilliant. Brilliant. Thank you. Now I want to go to just your relationship with different devices, possibly movement, biohacking, using breath work, using mindfulness. I give you the example that over the last 2-3 years, I've needed more debriefing and counseling and work than ever before. But my main area of really helping me navigate this world is through exercise. I've run over 40,000 kilometers on the road in the last 28 years. I've done this
Wow.
amazing Comrades Marathon, which is 56 miles, 11 times in a row. It's just a place where I go to. And my wife and I have been married for 23 years. I love my marriage, but I think she's now come to the realization that every single day I need movement. It's my place where I can access, I think, joy. And you've taught me so much already about what I can access and how I can just rest and observe and walk with different type of emotions and different type of thoughts and to observe them. And now you put a name like referring to joy. It's you personalize it. That's beautiful, so that we can acknowledge it. But talk about, and I know there are different ways, and we've done a lot of vagal training at the practice using heart rate variability. Talk about what has really helped a lot of your patients and your clients over the years to really help use different devices to help the vagus nerve and to increase vagal tone and to really help people access joy.
Yeah. I have been very low device because I take care of a very impoverished community.
Okay.
And so what I would say has been my biggest, most powerful device is breath work.
Okay.
Bar none. And so just teaching people how to access their breath, deep diaphragmatic breathing, different kinds of breath counts, box breathing. Also, there are actually soma breath work. There are many ways that we can access sort of a practice around our breath. But the breath has been the biggest, I would say, vagus companion for my patients. Mostly because it stimulates the vagus nerve, like you were saying, and gives us that relaxation, but really gives us that sense of safety in our body. But also because I think metaphorically, the breath is much bigger than that. The breath gives us this opportunity to know that I can start over in any moment. The breath reminds us that we are safe, that we are okay, that life may not be okay, but I am okay in this moment. The vagus nerve literally helps us secrete oxytocin to help us create that safety. The breath helps us remember that we are able to find space. We often say, I need to take a deep breath, just to create space in our body to receive what we are receiving, to offer what we need to offer, to make space for joy. So there are these other metaphorical, energetic reasons that I think breath work is so profound. But in the physiological sense, I would say that is the number one thing I teach and number one thing that people use to understand how to get back into their bodies.
Brilliant. Coming to the end, I do want to talk about community, multiple circles of community. I had the privilege of really seeing one of the greatest men, Nelson Mandela, in my own country, really come out of prison and embody, I think, joy and peace and no resentment, and to transform South Africa in the most incredible way. And he had this statement, he said, I am because we are. And it was a healthy definition of who people are within their own communities. Possibly embellish on how important our communities are. And I'm not talking about codependency here at all. We need to do our own work. We are unique in who we are, but there's a role for the community with regards to activating joy and accessing joy and walking this life.
Yeah, well, I really believe, Steve, that all healing happens in community. And when I say that, I mean that connection to others is imperative to our health. We know that through much science, but we know that through our personal experience, which is more powerful than any randomized control trial. That grief and isolation and feeling disconnected can literally kill us, right? Loneliness has been termed an epidemic in our country as well. And I think about community, not just in the communities that we live in, that we work in, but I think about our ancestral communities, our cultural communities. So I draw on these every day. And I often teach people how to access the power of their ancestors, of our global ancestors, whether that be in prayer, meditation, or just acknowledgement, how to access community healing here through group experiences and so forth. I think connection is imperative. But what I often explain to people who say, well, I'm all alone. I have no family. I have no friends. I don't have a community, right? That's what I see most is people saying, well, I don't have a community.
Yeah.
And I will often teach people how to do some work, some meditation around accessing those ancestors that they don't know they can feel connected to. When I'm feeling really dark and hopeless, I'll often sit and do some breath work and access all the mothers of this world who have suffered, all the mothers who have gone before me, who have lost their children or bled their hearts for their children. And I will imagine them in a loving circle around me, giving me their love and their strength. And I will give them back my gratitude. And I will tell you, there's no faster way for me to feel less alone than doing something like that. And so remembering that the grace of all that have gone before us is why we are here today is very important to me in my practice as well as my personal life. And I think to have true joy and vibrant health, we all need to feel connected somehow, somewhere to others, whether that be figuratively, ancestrally, or present day, because that's how we connect to ourselves.
Brilliant, brilliant. Just the last one on community. The role of health coaching is in its infancy here in South Africa. I know it's sort of growing in the States. Where do you see health coaching going? Because I really believe just because we don't have enough doctors, costs are often prohibitive. A health coach can take a group of people and group of 8 people, help them along their journey, meet their needs, can be cost effective. Do you foresee this growing?
I think it has to, honestly. Well, so there's 2 reasons I think that. One is that I think the healthcare systems of this world are really suffering. They really need more accessible care and education for people. And number 2 is that because of that capacity to do this work in groups, that also makes this more sustainable and accessible. I also think that there is power in health coaching is more of a peer-to-peer model, which I think is very powerful in any kind of growth in health and any kind of education for patients, because there's a power that comes from learning from your peers. And this system of medicine has been set up to be very hierarchical. And so I think that there are many reasons why it has to grow.
Brilliant. Well, thank you so much. Let people know where they can connect with you. You've got a great website. I know you're on Instagram, but just give them all the details.
Yeah, my website is under reconstruction, but it will still be the same name. So it will be www.tanmeetsethimd.com. And maybe you'll link to that. I know the spelling can be hard for people. And then I'm most active. I'm on Facebook as well, but most active on Instagram at Tanmeet Sethi MD. And I'd love to hear from people and have them tag us with their takeaways or what their thoughts are, because that really what I'm most excited about is now this organic live conversation we're having around it, so I'm very eager to hear from people.
Yeah. And tell us about your book, because I think that's the most important. I think it's a brilliant book.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. Tell us where people can get your book and if it's going to be available on Amazon or where it's going to be that we can get it.
Yeah. So it's available on Amazon, and you can go to my website, or my Instagram page has a direct link to order it. So those are all places. So it's called Joy is My Justice. And I would love to see it in the hands of as many people as possible.
Yeah, we'll release this episode very close to that release date, exactly when you tell us. So I just want to declare favor and blessing over you, Tanmeet Sethi. You're a courageous healer. You're a person who's got the most beautiful soul, and I'm grateful for people like you. I'm grateful to connect with you and go along this journey. And hopefully one day when I come to America, we can meet up and I can give you a long oxytocin hug.
Yes.
And just thank you for your just absolute willingness to serve. We didn't get into anti-racism medicine, but maybe we can do that again because of our history, and wanted to focus on joy. But thank you so much. Who you are and why you are is just so evident to the world. And it's we might be sitting, I'm in Johannesburg, you're sitting, I think, on the West Coast in Seattle, but it's just a wonderful connection, and I'm really grateful for that.
Oh, this was a deep privilege. I do hope we get to share physical space at some point.
Beautiful. Well, we will send you all the details. We'll let you know. You just tell us exactly the release date, and we'll go from there. And I look forward to chatting again.